In this video we're going to look at the resource page. This is a resource that I created in a different video guide and it's based on a Spanish text, which you can see here, an English translation of that text and the vocab items for that text. Let's look at all of the items on the page. So to start with, we have these links here which basically take us to a resource search, and they're kind of context specific. So if I click in school here, it will look for other items in that school folder where this resource is saved. This is the only resource that's in that folder belonging to me. But if I click on community resources, I can see there's another resource there belonging to somebody else. So I could, if I wanted to, open that and see what that's all about. Anyway, we'll close that. They are links to the resource menu. Here we have an indicator that the resource belongs to me. Here we have an edit button which allows me to edit the resource. If I want to copy the resource so that I can create a variant of it, I can do that via this button here. You can also do this with other people's resources that have been saved as public resources. This button allows me to set an assignment, so it will allow me to go to one of my classes and create an assignment based on this resource. And this button allows me to set a competition. So the same idea, it will take me to one of my classes, whichever one I choose, and allow me to set a competition for individuals or for teams. Okay, we have some more buttons here above the line. This one here allows us to modify the text-to-speech speed. We have one that allows us to change which activity sounds happen, so whether the keyboard clicks, whether there are positive and negative sounds for the activity, or whether there are fanfares at the end of the activity. This one offers us all kinds of options for printing worksheets, which we will not look at now. And this one allows us to share a link to an activity or to the resource. Because I've opened the resource directly, I don't have an activity open. If I click this now, then what we have there is a link directly to the resource, and you can click on this to copy it. Once I have an activity open, this will update automatically so that I'll be copying a direct link to the activity with all of the parameters that I've set. Okay, the resource itself. So we have resource view and we have activity view. In resource view we can see our main text, our parallel English text and our matching items, all provided with text-to-speech buttons, a text-to-speech button to play the whole text here, or a slider to play the text-to-speech in sections. Let's give you a quick example of some text-to-speech. So I'll play this from the beginning.
En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. Me gusta la historia porque es
You see that the blue dot is moving along the slider, so you can do the same thing. You can choose a point within the slider and start playing the text.
Porque aprendo mucho en clase y la profesora es buena. No me gustan las matemáticas porque son difíciles.
And you'll see that these sections of text here are clickable, and when you click them it will provide you with the translation. And this information here is taken automatically from your matching items. So the resource view is essentially a great way for students to familiarise themselves with the content of the resource, to play all the audio for the different vocab items, to read, have a look at the translations and so on. Okay, let's move on to activity view. Currently we have no activities loaded. We can either randomly generate an activity or we can look at the activity menu. Let's look at the activity menu. And because our resource is based on matching items and on L2 text, we have two sections to our menu. Let's start by looking at the text rebuild activities. Okay, you can see that we have an option here for whether or not to include the text-to-speech in our activities. So if I choose not to include it, let's start by looking at the blocks section of the menu, which is to do with putting blocks of text into the correct order. The words section is to do with rebuilding activities either on a word-by-word basis or splitting words. Letters is spelling-based activities and games, and the games section includes various activities from these previous 3 sections that have been grouped together because they're all kind of gamey, so Million, Speed Read, Football, Invaders and so on. Okay, let's start by looking at blocks. So within the blocks section we have multi-choice, 3 options of multi-choice. Let's start by looking at multi-choice 1 and 4. And what that does, it presents our text to us broken down into steps. For each step, and there are 10 steps as we're shown here, for each step we have to choose the correct one from the 4 options provided. Because we have our parallel text showing, we have that to refer to, so we know that we're looking for something that means this. So at school I study history and geography, there we go, en el colegio, and so we can use the parallel text to guide us through the translation of the text. I like history because it's interesting, me gusta la historia, okay, and so on. If we don't have the parallel text available, and to remove that all we have to do is click on this button here, then it's a pure text reconstruction activity where the only clues that we have are the text itself and the context clues within that. Me gusta la historia porque es interesante y divertida, pero no me gusta la geografía. Correct, okay. Anyway, because we have a parallel text available, I'll click on that and it makes the activity kind of more doable. We can also choose to play this with text-to-speech audio. So this time we have audio to refer to. So if we now turn off the parallel text, what we essentially have now is a dictation activity where students are listening to the audio and listening for the correct bits of text so that they can put them back into the correct order. Let's show you how that works.
En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. Me gusta la historia porque es interesante y divertida.
Okay, you see, so it's basically a dictation activity. If we make the parallel text available, it becomes a combination of dictation and translation. So it's kind of a dictation activity, but you have the benefit of having the English there to provide structure and also to make it clear to students exactly what the text is supposed to be saying. So, pero no, but I don't like geography because it's complicated.
Me gusta la historia porque es interesante y divertida. Pero no me gusta la geografía porque es complicada y a veces aburrida.
You see that, so obviously I could, if I was just doing this as a listening activity, I could listen out for the sounds that look like those words without actually knowing what it means. But because I have the English there, it provides L1 support and tells me exactly what it's all supposed to say. Okay, that's just one of the activities, and we've looked at the various options around parallel text and text-to-speech. If we click back on blocks here, this will take us back into the correct section of the activity menu. So we looked at multi-choice 1 in 4, we have a 1 in 3 option, a 1 in 6 option. We also have several jigsaw rebuild options. What they do is they break the text down into the number of sections specified. So if I choose 12, our text is broken down into 12 sections, and what we have to do is click on them in the correct order. Again, we could do it with the parallel text, with the text-to-speech. We have neither of those as just a pure text reconstruction activity, or we could have both available so that we can listen to what the language sounds like, and we have the English there to provide structure and meaning for us. So at school I study history and geography.
En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. Me gusta la historia porque es interesante y divertida. Pero no me gusta la geografía porque es complicada.
And obviously we can also restart from this point, so I can choose 18 or 24 tiles. So obviously the more tiles you provide, the harder the activity becomes. Let's go back into the blocks menu again. We have a million activity, and the million activity requires you to do essentially the same thing as the previous ones I've been looking at. Reconstruct the text by putting the chunks into the correct order. This time though you have to get 15 questions correct in a row to win. And one other activity I can show you from there is speed read, which is not available with text-to-speech, and I'll show you why. I disable the text-to-speech there, speed read becomes available as an option. Speed read is a speed reading activity. I'm going to remove the parallel text as well, because I won't really have time to read that. So what we have to do here is rebuild the text as quick as we can, and we have 3 lives. For each chunk of text that we want to build, we have a timer which counts down. If I start playing, you'll see what I mean. So I'll click here to start. Studio. And as I go along, the time gets faster and faster, and if I get things wrong, I lose a chunk of time as well. And if the time goes all the way down, I lose a life. And so on. And you keep going until you lose all 3 lives, and then you get a score based on how many times in total you've read the text, and at that point a score as well. So there are all the activities within the blocks section. So we've seen them all, million, the jigsaw rebuilds and the multiple choice rebuilds. So then we can look at the words section, and you can see within words we have various options available too. So we have 3x3, 2x2 and word by word. I'll just show you word by word so you get an idea what it's all about. I'm going to make the parallel text available here now. I could also make the audio available.
En el colegio,
And that's word by word. We also have a random gap fill. When you create your resource, you have the option of creating a user-defined gap fill where you can choose the words or chunks of words that are to be used as gaps. But even if you don't do that, a random gap fill is automatically created for you. And it's as simple as clicking on the word for the box that is highlighted. If you want to change to a different box, you can just click on it. If I get it wrong, it'll tell me it's wrong, and so on. And we keep going until we finish all of the gaps, and we're given the score there. Some activities, this is one of them, allow you to buy an answer. So if you're not sure, it'll fill it in for you. This affects your score quite considerably there. And that's the gap fill. And again, you can do it with or without parallel text, with or without text-to-speech audio. Back to the menu. This one is called Find the Gap. This time what we have to do is decide where there is a word missing, and once we've done that we have to decide which is the word that needs to be chosen to fill the gap. So at school I study history and geography, and in el colegio I think the word estudio is required. So I click on that gap and then click on the word. If I get it wrong, it turns red and it affects my score. Okay, that's Find the Gap. We also have Space, which requires us to separate the words by clicking between them. Okay. With Space you also have the option of choosing how many words are affected. So we can restart this with just a quarter of the words affected. And we can also do this with audio as well, but that will restart.
En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. Me gusta la historia porque es interesante y divertida.
Okay, you get the idea. So that's Space, sometimes known as break the flow. We also have jumbled words. I'm just going to turn off the text-to-speech. This time, as the name suggests, what you have to do is put the words into the correct order. En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. Okay, and that's jumbled words, and we also have a football game. With the football game, what we have to do is fill in gaps. So I'll choose a 1st to 3, start the game. Me gusta estudiar. Oh, I missed. You see, long passes and long shots very often fail. Okay, and text activities are scored against me, and we continue until one of the teams gets 3 goals. That's football. We also have 3 in a row, which is a similar kind of idea. So the idea here is to select circles on this board, and for every 3 in a row, horizontally, vertically or diagonally, you score a point. And you can play against another player, just as with football, or you can play against the computer. So you can see we scored 1 point each now, and we carry on building on this. So if I block this here, this will stop the orange team getting another point there. Okay, and you see the orange team has also blocked me from getting a point. So that's 3 in a row. Word invaders. We have to click on the words in the correct order. The idea is that we must prevent any of these purple blocks from reaching the 3 bands at the bottom, because they represent our lives. So if they touch one of those, they take away a life, and when all 3 lives are gone, that's the game over. So there are the activities within the words section. Letters. Let's quickly look at the letters activities. So in this activity we have to add back in all of the vowels. So N, L, colegio, and you can use the keyboard as well. That's vowels. Quickly go through the others. Consonants is consonants. So N, L, colegio, and so on. I'll show you 50-50, which is just randomly takes out 50% of all of the letters. So we have to make sure that we only type in the ones that are missing. If we get something wrong, it tells us that we're wrong. That's 50-50. We can also choose initials. This time we're given the initial letter, so again we must only type in the missing letters. L-E-G-I-O, and finally word shapes, which this time just gives you the shapes of the words without any other clues, so you can just type the missing letters. And anagrams. This time you're presented with an anagram of all of the missing words. So N, L, again we can use the keyboard. If we get something wrong, it tells us that it's wrong. Also, I want to show you something that unites these 6 activities here, these 6 letter activities, and space and jumble words. If you look down here now, we've completed 0 sections of 9 and we've got anagrams selected, but we could switch at this point to space instead. I'll show you quickly. En el colegio estudio historia y geografía. So we've completed 1, we're now on section 2. But what we can do now is we change to a quarter of the spaces. And for example, now we can say, well, I'd like to change now to no vowels. Again, a quarter of the text is affected. Or we could go to initials and change it to half the text. So there's all kinds of flexibility that you have if you're using these activities in front of the class, where you can, as you move through the text, change from one activity to another, change the amount of the text that's affected by the transformations and so on. And you can buy an answer to these as well by clicking on the money button to buy an answer to the questions, and that has a big impact on your score. The other 2 activities in letters, which are the final 2 activities on the text rebuild side, are letter invaders. We saw word invaders before. This one's a letter-based version. Porque aprendo mucho en clase. So that's letter invaders, and then snake. And in snake, I'll just remove the parallel text. What you have to do is find the missing block of text, which is hidden in a snake form in the grid. So we're looking for especialmente. So that's all of the activities we looked at, and as I said before, if we go into the games section, it repeats all of the activities that we've already looked at in the other three sections that are quite gamey. Then we have the vocab and matching activities. One key thing that you should know about vocab and matching is that there are 6 different modes on text activities for vocab activities. So the top 3 that you can see here all have L1 outputs, i.e. English outputs. So we have Spanish text to English text, Spanish audio to English text, Spanish audio and Spanish text to English text. And then the second row is all L2 outputs, so in this case it's Spanish outputs. So we have English text matched to Spanish text, Spanish audio matched to Spanish text, Spanish audio and English text matched to Spanish text. So obviously whichever one of these you choose to use has a big impact on the type of activity that you're creating or using with your students. So being presented with the Spanish text and having to decide the English is a very different activity from having to spell the Spanish, having been presented with an audio version of the Spanish or the written form of the English. So within vocab and matching we have 4 sections again. Again, games is a compilation of the games that are in these previous 3 sections. Match is to do with matching things. And we have lots of activities within there. We have flashcards, we have snap, we have multiple choice matching, we have a millionaire match, we have pairs. So with pairs we have, because we have L1 text to L2 text selected, we have both English and Spanish within this game, so we just have to find the matching pairs. And so on. We can choose 6, 9 or 12 pairs, and obviously we can do that using one of the various formats provided. So that was matching English to Spanish. We also have matching Spanish audio to Spanish text.
Además, porque es fácil y divertido.
We also have a Spanish audio and English text to Spanish text.
Me gusta el arte.
So this time they can hear it. They're matching the spoken form with the written form, but they also have the English there to tell them exactly what it means. And we also have L2 text to L1 text, so it's the same as the other one essentially, matching Spanish to English. We also have L2 audio to L1 text, so this time we have Spanish audio and English text.
Me gusta el arte.
Or we have Spanish audio and Spanish text matching to English.
Además.
And so on. So these are quite different each time. The difference is more pronounced with some of the other activities. So let's have a look back at the activity menu. So within the match menu we also have a memory version of that game. We have a football game, which is similar to the football game in the text activities, and a 3-in-a-row game too. You'll see that these 2 sections of the vocab matching activity menu are blanked out because we have L1 output selected. This is because we've decided that it doesn't make much sense having activities based on reordering words or spelling things if what you're spelling is the actual English. So those activities are only available where the outputs are the foreign language that the students are learning. So if we choose any of the other options here, any of the other modes, you'll see that those activities become available again. So in word reordering we have just one activity, jumble words. And so jumble words, you're presented with the prompt, whichever one of the prompts you've chosen, and you have to put the words into the correct order. That's with English text to Spanish text. We can also have this with Spanish audio as a prompt.
Me gusta la historia.
Or we could also have it as Spanish audio and English text.
Me gusta la historia.
Okay, that's jumble words. We also have all of these spelling activities which are the same pretty much as the ones you found on the text activities, on text rebuild activities. So to just choose one as an example, word shapes.
Estudio historia y geografía.
So we've got the mode selected where we're listening to the Spanish, we can see the English meaning, and we have to spell out the Spanish. And because we have the parallel text available to us, that may help us to find the bit of Spanish and to spell it out correctly. The other option that I want to show you is initials.
Me gusta el arte.
So with the initials chosen, and maybe with just L1 text to L2 text, we have a good example of a Find the Spanish activity where students are presented with an English prompt. They have to spell out the Spanish, but they can use the text above to help them find the missing words and find the spelling for that if they need to. That's the letters activities, and as previously, the games section is a repeat of all of the gaming activities that were in the previous 3 sections. There's only one that I haven't shown you yet, which is Maze, which is also in the letters activities. Maze is only available for matching activities. I'll remove the parallel text, and the aim of this game is to steer around the maze, avoiding the monsters, and clicking to rebuild the phrase, to fill in the letters in the phrase. The cool thing about this game is the further you go through it, the more points you score, the faster the monsters get. I say monsters because it starts off with 1 and goes on to 2 and 3 and then finally 4. So it gets quite fast and furious, and it's a really fun game. So we're looking for he likes it a lot. We want a él le gusta mucho. Él le. And if we get something wrong, we get frozen in the spot for a couple of seconds. And so on. So that's all of the games. I'll quickly show you the random activities. So if we click on random, it will choose randomly select one of the games available from all of the menus for this resource, and it will also choose a mode. So if there are multiple modes available, it will randomly select one of the modes as well. So that one, this time it's chosen a match snake activity. Now we have a text activity with no audio, 50-50. We can optionally choose to have the parallel text to make it easier for ourselves.
Además.
This time we have a match anagrams activity.
Tengo amigos en clase.
And this random button is also available on competitions. So in competition, the students basically have to go into a resource and they have to score as many points as they can. And they can choose to either use the activity menu and choose from the available activities based on the particular focus for the competition, or they can click on random and it will randomly select an activity for them. Okay, and that's the resource page. Let's go back to resource view. I'll show you now that because we have that activity selected, if we go to click on share, that link will now take us directly to the activity with all of the parameters set, with the parallel text, with the correct mode and everything. One thing you should know is that only people who have logins to TextActivities will be able to access the activity via that link. Quickly, very, very quickly, look at worksheets, printing. So if we click on print options, we have match activities, and we also have text activities. So to give you an idea quickly, here's the random gap fill. We can choose to include the parallel text, and it gives you a kind of an idea what it looks like there. And if I then choose to print that, it gives me my answers there. I can redo it if I want to choose a different set of words. And if I then choose to print that in portrait mode, okay, we see that that's very small. That's ideal if you want to only have it on half a page. So we can now use the zoom controls to zoom it. Do that a few times and then try again, see if it now looks the way we'd like it to look, a bit better. Anyway, there's lots of options available there to get a good worksheet. That's gap fill. You can also have things like, let's have a look, initials. So this time we have text printed out with all the initial letters represented. Students have to rewrite the text on the line provided, and we can again choose to include the parallel text. For some of the activities we can choose how much is affected, so if we choose half the text then only half the words appear in that way. And again we can click on print to see what that looks like. And there's our worksheet. We can either save that as a PDF using the destination here in Chrome's print tools, or we can print directly to a printer. There are lots of options there, so I won't spend any more time looking through those. That is the resource page on TextActivities.